Hi, the words of reflection for Sunday, November the 29th, 2020, which is the first Sunday in the season of Advent, are based on Isaiah 64, verses 1 to 9. Max and Madge were walking down the street, and it was a perfect, beautiful winter evening. All the shopping centers and the stores were festooned with light. So as Madge and Max came upon a church with a small, dimly lit creche on its tiny lawn, Max said, "Look at that! Now even the churches are trying to horn in on Christmas." Well, the creche on the lawn at Keene United Church, it's not small or dimly lit, but rather celebrates that Advent and Christmas are our seasons. That this is the Christian time to share a story of unconditional love, radical generosity, and abundant grace. So what do we do with a passage like the one from Isaiah that doesn't paint that gentle and loving image of a God who is born as a baby in a humble setting, but begins our Advent season with this note of sinful and unrighteous acts, with the quaking of the mountains by God's presence instilling fear and the trembling of the nations, and with the strained relationship between God and God's people? The words from Isaiah sound harsh, the prayer almost accusatory, the questioning of God's presence. And yet, using the word that begins verse 8, and yet, despite all of the strain and the stress and the fear and the wonderment of the world, in this prayer Isaiah speaks of the power of God tearing open the heavens to come to God's people. The close relationship between the potter and the clay, the creator and that which is being created. The fuller chapter speaks of the hope that God will soon restore Jerusalem to its former glory and make a new home for all people. Maybe this is the Advent season that we can relate to in our lives today. Knowing that we can't do this COVID thing on our own, that we can't fix the complex problems of the world, that we need the potter's hand to bring about transformation and to shape us into a people who work together for the reign of God's dream in our world. When beginning to spin the potter's wheel, the potter must use some heavy force to throw the clay onto the wheel and to what's called center it. And so when images of pottery often come to one's mind, we often think of this gentle nuancing of this finished product. We often forget that to begin the process requires such dramatic centering. So let us center ourselves in this Advent season, acknowledging those areas in our lives where we find it hard to let God in, identifying the times when we ignore the nudge of what we feel is right, exploring the places of broken relationships that seek restoration. In beginning from a place of self-exploration, we can offer ourselves more readily to the potter's transformative power to reshape and remold us. And knowing this will take time as we wait on God. The hope in our Christmas story, or in our own story, intersects with those in the Christmas story. Those who faced uncertainty and still were able to hold hope in their hearts. Hope shows up in the story of Christmas. It's in the young virgin who agrees to carry the divine. It's in the shepherds who respond to the babe, daring to believe in the truth that the angels proclaim of the birth of the one who brings peace to the earth. It's in Mary and Joseph as they look for a place of belonging in a strange city and land. Hope is in the star that shines, offering guidance to those who travel in the dark, and it's born into that stable with the promise of our Emmanuel, God is with us. We might wonder, where is the hope today? Do the stars still shine? Are there people who commit to carrying the divine? Do people still hear the angels? Do we still dare to believe the good news of God born anew in our midst? This Advent and Christmas season, we know of people who are hurting and broken. We feel the pain of families separated and those who are divided. we're tired of waiting. We've already done that and we want to hurry things up already. Not to hear that only now we're entering into the season of waiting. And yet, in faith we cling to this mystery of hope, that which was, which is, which will be, God with us in this season and the days to come. And so my Advent hope for you. In the cold of winter, may blue skies fill your horizon. With the sight of snow, may the sunlight dance more vibrantly in your life. As Christmas lights shine, may the darkness of your nights feel shorter. And may the birth of the Christ child a couple of thousand years ago have the power to touch your heart today, filling you with abiding love, deep peace, great joy, and hope. Hope that in the dance between uncertainty and trust, you will move to the rhythm in the assurance that you do not walk alone. Thanks be to God. Amen.